Well, hello and welcome everybody to the Whitey and Wils Sports Show. This is episode number 12. Today is Monday, November 29th. And this actually is episode number 12. Last week I started off the show by saying number 12, and that was actually 11. So I lost count. We actually are on our dozenth episode. No guest today. We are going to go sans guest. We have a lot of basketball to talk about. The high school seasons have been going on for a couple of weeks now. The boys got going last week, and the girls have been going for a couple of weeks now. So plenty of basketball around the area to talk about, and that's what we are going to do. Mike, you and I spent most of our time around the St. Anthony Thanksgiving tournament, where Attiboy ended up finishing second. They lost the championship game, a low-scoring championship game to Breeze Central. But there were teams from the area in action all over the place. I've been trying to keep tabs on it as much as possible, so we'll touch on all that. But I figured we would start probably talking about that, and also just a teaser. We're not going to get to it quite yet, but we are going to, for the first time this week, we are going to be handing out the Attaboy of the Week award that Mike has been thinking about since before we even started recording shows. This has been something that he's been wanting to do for a while now. So we'll talk about that in a bit. But
and we have that award. That award is going to be sponsored, co-sponsored.
Yeah, we're
more of a tease.
We're gonna tease that now and make you listen for a while before you hear who sponsored it and who won it. But that is coming up later in the show. Something else I wanted to touch on before we get to the St. Anthony Thanksgiving tournament, and something that I should have done during last week's show was give a shout out to Steve Raymond at the Effingham Totopolis News Report. Did a real nice story on us for their paper a couple of weeks ago, and that was when we're trying to get off the ground here, any publicity we can get is certainly welcome. And Steve did a nice job with the story, so I wanted to make sure we gave him a big thank you for taking a little time to feature us.
Definitely a boost. Had a lot of people tell me they read the article, run into him at the tournament, run into him in the grocery store, various places, and hey, I read that article. That's nice. And I started listening to the podcast, and I heard your interview with blah, or your interview with here, and I really liked it. I said, well, listen to them all and subscribe.
Yeah.
So and our subscriptions are up in the 50s now, Whitey.
Yeah, we're getting there. We've said all along that getting that first 100 would be nice, and we're up to 55 now. So it's steadily increasing, and we're hoping the basketball season will be a good boost for us as the year goes on. And this Attaboy award ought to, hopefully people will listen just to hear us talk about those kids. And I think we should probably clarify, it's not while we're calling it Attaboy, I don't think that we're limiting ourselves to the boys on this.
No, it's not gender specific. It's just part of, again, our tease. Part of the behind the award is we've got a little soundbite we'll play when we get there, and the soundbite just says Attaboy. So but yeah, any girl can get the Attaboy of the week. My daughters have heard enough Attaboys when they do something good, or sometimes something not so good, that they understand. So excited. I survived a trip to Nashville in the middle of the week. I'd recommend avoiding Opera Mills Mall the afternoon of Black Friday.
I avoid leaving my house on Black Friday.
Well, we were just out and about, and of course the females in our contingent had to, we got to get this. And when you see 4-lane parkway, which is kind of like an interstate, but not, and for about a half mile, 2 lanes completely bumper to bumper just to get to the exit. And then the second exit, all 4 lanes were blocked because of people still trying to get over. And I think I waited in a Bass Pro 45 minutes just to check out. And when I'm ready to check out, I can help someone over here. Oh, you've now got 2 registers open? you don't think us standing in line for 45 minutes. So it was quite an eventful trip.
So I think that gets it out of the way that Bass Pro Shop is not our sponsor for the week.
No, they're not our sponsor.
They have not contributed. So
I just have a tip for the owners of Bass Pro. Have as many registers open as you have people trying to get you to sign up for timeshare. Just throwing that out there. I mean, maybe help to them. Don't know.
Well, with that out of the way, let's get started with some talk about the St. Anthony Turkey Tournament. We interviewed 3 boys coaches in our last show. Chet Reeder from T-Town, Obie Farmer from Effingham, and Cody Rinker from St. Anthony, and they were all a part of that field. So it feels like the place to start. And it was a tough week for one of those coaches, one of his teams. It was a so-so week for one of those coaches' teams, and it was a pretty good week for the other one. St. Anthony was 0-3 in their pool play, but did get did manage to get the win in their final game against Rantoul. That's correct? And in
overtime, they won that in overtime.
Yeah, there were a couple of overtime games on that last day, I think.
Yeah, that's a scheduling nightmare.
So Effingham lost the 3rd place game to Matt Toon, so they won a couple games, lost a couple games. And then the Shoes, they went 3-0 in their pool, and then they faced Breeze Central in the championship and dropped a really low-scoring game there. It was 32-29 in the championship game Saturday night at Inlow Center. And that, by the way, I saw that, and so I looked at the program, and that equals the lowest scoring combined scoring game in the tournament. Yeah, Taylorville
in the tournament.
Yeah, Taylorville, or in tournament history. Taylorville and Flora played a game in 2006 that ended 31-30, 61 combined points. And that is
I would have been coaching in that tournament. So,
well, in that same tournament, St. Anthony and Charleston set the record for the most combined points in the game. That was an 85-82 game that Charleston won.
Oh, you sure? Don't remind me.
Well, not everyone is still going to have games from 15 years ago on
eating at their psyche when they try to sleep at night. No, but that just kind of tells you we were very offensive minded.
Yeah, offensive minded, not the way that championship game went. It was, I don't know. I didn't catch the whole thing, Mike.
Well, T-Town and Breeze play, first of all. I have the utmost respect for their program, and I want to give a shout out to Stan Eagleson, their former coach, who's actually they're naming the court in his honor, I believe, next week or this coming weekend. I coached against Stan back in the day. Jeremy Schubert, their current coach, was on the staff. But when St. Anthony and Breeze Central play, it's kind of like an inter-squad game. Very similar teams, very similar styles. Going to guard you, not going to give up easy buckets, going to get after it. So classics. I mean, I remember Greenville sectional championship. We beat Breeze in overtime in a tremendous ball game when I was on the bench at T-Town helping Coach Fehrenbacher. So it's always fun when these two schools hook up and play. And there for a while, they'd play regular season, they'd play postseason. So they've gotten kind of familiar with each other. But and it's kind of funny. Breeze had not shot the ball well the first 3 games of the tournament. Had not shot it well at all. And I was talking to one of their former assistants, and I said, "You guys, did your shooters miss the bus?" And he goes, "We'll be all right." Well, they come out to start that championship game, and I think they hit like 3 or 4 of their first 5. Shot it well in the first couple minutes. And but both teams guarded hard. They were both taking stuff away from each other, so it just kind of became a slugfest. Just muck it up. Both teams were missing opportunities to score. But, you know, ended up being a pretty, I mean, it was a fun game to watch for watching a chess match. If you thought you were going to watch a ping pong match, you didn't like it, but it was a good ball game.
Breeze Central, you know, they were undefeated last year in the you know, kind of shortened COVID season, and they came into this thing and won 4 games by a total of 13 points. They got a ball game every time out. They opened the season with Effingham, opened the game tournament Tuesday night. Effingham lost 37-35, had the lead on them most of the way. In fact, I was broadcasting that one, and Effingham was ahead most of the way, and just sort of it kind of got away from them at the end.
Well, and I think watching that game, I know you were doing the radio, I was there watching. Garrett Wolfe got one out as that game went on, I think. You know, first off, I'm just amazed he's playing at the level he's able to play with the horrific injury he was dealing with the broken tibia and fibia. And, you know, the only time you should get close to a bowl is when you're eating. And I was just shocked. You know, I was talking to his mom. I said, you know, here's a kid that's questionable at best to be out there. Okay. And he's diving on the floor, sliding up against the bleachers, going after loose balls. And but you do notice when he falls, he always tries to fall on one hip. You know, he knows where the pain is.
Yeah.
And just gutty effort. And the Hearts in general, Obi's defensively, I think that's the best I've seen an FEM team play defense under Coach Farmer. I mean, just it's like they're finally getting it. And this group relies, you know, they just can't go out and outscore you.
No, I mean, they lost so much scoring from last year's
right.
Team. You're far and away your 2 leading scorers, and not guys that average like, you know, 10 or 11 points a game, but guys who average closer to 20. So, yeah. I mean, they were in the 20s. And so, you know, it's hard to replicate that. You're not always going to have kids that can just score that way, but what any group at least has the ability to do is defend well. You know, defense is so much more effort based than offense. And so, you know, if you put your mind to it, and they clearly have, then you can keep yourself competitive. And that's what Effingham did this week. And I think at least early on, that's the kind of season it's going to be for the Hearts. You know, they're just going to have to defend well, stay in games, and see about getting it, you know, finishing it off at the end.
And the biggest problem with that is you don't have a lot of margin for error. You know, you always say value the possession, and I agree, you have to value the possession of the ball. But when you're in a game that's going to be 37-35, or you're going to be in a game that's 85-83, a turnover in the 85-83 game, and though some people argue affects you the same, I feel like little runs don't affect you. You know, you get up 6 points in that game, that's 15 seconds with a 3 and a turnover and a 3 or an and 1. You get up 6 points in that 37-35 game, that's more like a 12-point lead. That takes some work because the clock is being chewed up every possession because you're making them work, and then you come down and you've got to work. And you know, and Breeze Central early didn't shoot the ball well, and FEM got to that lead, and I kept thinking, okay, well, this Breeze is going to make a couple shots, and no, FEM defensively kept making Breeze uncomfortable, I guess is the best way to put it.
Yeah, I mean, the Hearts did score against Robinson the next night. They beat Robinson 62-54, but that was kind of the outlier as far as point totals go, because St. Anthony game, they beat St. Anthony 48-30. Pretty convincing win there. We can talk about that one a little bit more in a second. But then against Mattoon, on Saturday in the third place game, Mattoon got them 54-40. So the point totals in the first week, by and large, right around that 40 mark. And again, like you talk about, that if you're gonna score in the 40s, then you got to defend well. And in the Apollo Conference, that can certainly sometimes be the case. Games turn into wars, but you hope that as you get more than a week into the year, you start figuring out some guys that are going to put some points on the board for you. Garrett Wolf was on the all tournament team, but we kind of knew that he'd come out, and he's just by virtue of his last name, you kind of know that he's going to come out and play with some confidence, and he's going to want to score, but they are going to have to find those other options as the season progresses.
And you gotta, you find them. The big thing with them will be consistency. Garrett Wolfe, I thought at times looked really good in the tournament. Did some good things. You just can't. Kyle's kid, is it Braden? I'm sorry, I didn't have the list or anything in front of me. The program. My producers didn't have that prepared for me ahead of time. So,
yeah, Braden.
I know. Was it Braden?
Yeah.
I know there was Matt and Greg talking about on the radio. Maybe it was before the third place game, during the pregame or something. I got there. That game was in progress, maybe halftime, and he'd been in foul trouble every game. He had 2 fouls in the quarter, I think, and he didn't in this game. But it was, he's such a valuable commodity, and in the aspect defensively, he makes kids alter their shots. Gets a lot of block shots. It's just, the silly fouls. There's time I know a kid got beat on the dribbles going down the middle of the lane, and he kind of reached in and tried to poke it. And I know it's kids just thinking, oh, that's, and then then now the foul's called. And now it's like, you've only got so many, and you need to be on the floor. He's got good hops. I think he gets a lot of blocks kind of coming weak side. The problem with that is when you start doing that a lot, those are missed that you don't block. Now that weak side's wide open for a putback, and that hurt Effingham late in that game when Mattoon kind of was pulling away, but they got a couple easy buckets on putbacks because Effingham was trying to block more shots than rebound at times. You get caught up in the moment, and that's another thing. You see. I'd like to see teams be more concerned about than getting a block shot, because there's times they've got 2 guys going for a block shot, and it's not just Effingham, it's everybody. And neither one of them have a chance to even touch the ball. And then they give a easy putback because they're both, gathering themselves out of bounds, trying to get up or it's just some of that. And Braden, he's got to pick and choose his moments when he blocks and when he doesn't. And I'd like to see him start using a little bit of a jump hook down on the block. As long as his arms are, I think he can. Almost an impossible shot to block, even by a bigger guy.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, he's
it's
6'6". So yeah. I mean, that's
his wingspan's got to be bigger than 6'6". So.
I will say, Braden didn't get to, he didn't get the minutes last year because of his knee. And
right.
So there's some
work in progress.
Yeah. There's development that can't happen anywhere but on the court. In a game, you can work out and practice, and you can play in the summer and do all that stuff. But like I think coaches, both weeks that we spoke to coaches on our show, a common refrain is we'll see you once the games start, and that's where guys figure things out. So
and Garrett Wolfe, for example, I was able to do a couple games on the radio last year, so I could see them, or I watched them actually on video. And some of the times he was able to go to the hole and transition because he was quick and strong. in a JV game is a lot different than when you go into a varsity game, because all of a sudden there's a Sam Bradford there saying, hey, I'm just going to knock this ball out of the air. I'm going to hold my ground. You can't just go through me, and there's not going to be a call made here. So it's different. Like you said, having the opportunity. Varsity basketball is so different than JV basketball. The speed of the game. And that's as big a problem, mentioning with St. Anthony with Cody, knew there was such a work in progress because, Craig Croy was coming back. You knew what you had there, but really other than that, it was all brand new. And the biggest thing I noticed there was kids taking too many dribbles into the basket. Oh, I can get one more dribble into the paint, make this pass, because I've always been able to do it in JV or fresh soft games. And now it doesn't work that way. Now there's, people there just getting balls taken away from them. They might have a rebound and they're waiting to clear it out. Well, in a fresh soft or JV game, maybe you can do that. But in a varsity game, if you're kind of holding, looking with it on your hip, there's somebody coming from the backside going to just steal you blind. And there was just some instances like that. They will learn, and Cody was moving people in and out, just trying to get a feel who can play.
Sure. Yeah,
who can play together.
Those are things you notice. And if they're still happening Christmas tournament time, then you start thinking, well, this is just a problem that we may not overcome. But first week of the season, you hope that those bad habits clear up, and I'm sure they're being addressed.
Well, yeah, but the thing is, like I know St. Anthony plays tomorrow. Everybody gets back in and starts playing games, but you create a little bit of a pecking order out of this tournament. Hey, I thought maybe A was a little further along than B, but now when I actually see, when it's not the rubber bullets, it's the live bullets. Hey, B responds better.
Mm-hmm.
So you get to see some of that. Finding depth, I think, is a challenge all three coaches are going to have. I think it can be there, and in some instances you may have to create it from your JV kids who you haven't seen yet. But finding those people that can come in and give you 2 solid minutes with not much of a dip at all. I think they all are looking at that because they're going to have to.
Yeah, it's we talked depth with all those coaches, and for the most part, 7, 8 guys, seeing action. I think I had T-Town's game against. I had T-Town going against Highland, and
okay.
They had the 3 Kneebergies in the starting lineup, which was fun to do play-by-play on. Although I tell you,
you're right. 60% of the time, you just say to Neemerkey.
I actually had less trouble telling Max, James, and Brendan apart than Caden Altoff and Mitch Altoff. They are about the same height, same kind of position. Their numbers are 23 and 24. So that one was actually throwing me off more than anything. But you had those guys and a couple of other contributors off the bench. We talked a little bit before we came on about Caleb Steemer. He's a 6'5" junior that's in the starting lineup for the Shoes, and they're going to need big things from him this year, I think, and I think they can get those. He is going to need to continue to get more confident with the ball in his hands, but he's
got so much upside. He has so much upside.
Yeah, and he really played well against Highland. The game that I paid the most attention to, he played very well in that one, and I think again, he's just a junior, so there's still a lot of time left for him to continue to grow. And he was on the all tournament team along with Brendan Kneebergy.
And the thing with Caleb, he's got pretty good footwork. He really does. But it's the confidence. It's holding the ball too long. it's, I think like a lot of every player, they're afraid to get a shot blocked. So sometimes they're afraid to turn and square up and just try to take that little 8-footer over a guy, or there's just a little bit of a fear there sometimes. And, you know, a block shot's just one shot closer to getting a foul on the guy. This is the way I always looked at it. You know, hey, let's make them block 10 shots. We're going to pick up fouls, because if they're getting early blocks, pretty soon they're going to get fouls because they're trying to do too much. And I would like to see him do more of that. He's got a nice shot from, 15 feet. I'm sure he can step out and shoot the 3 as well. He's got a nice looking jump shot. And, you mentioned the Highland game. I was watching another member of our tournament committee was sitting actually across the gym from me. And I just happened to text him when T-Town was behind 13-0, I think. I said, hey, Steemer has to bring them back. And he just was a different player than the first night. And he had spurts there in that game where he played with a lot of confidence. I thought he had a good ball game, like you said.
A couple other things as far as, really, really nice things that Caleb does well. He runs the floor, he gets up and down the floor. And you don't always see that from your big guys. They tend to trail a little bit, and sometimes that's not their fault. I mean, physically, it's just harder for them to be burners. But also, offensive rebounding. He does a nice job of cleaning that up and creating some second chances for T-Town. So that's and that's something that you got to see out of a big guy, right? Like that's going to be part of your success is for him to clean up on the glass and get some of those putback bunnies and take advantage of them. And he's done that pretty well.
Yeah. And the thing about the more he gets confidence, the more pressure it takes off Brendan Kneebergy. We haven't mentioned Brendan yet. Brendan was MVP of the tournament. Had a really, really nice first game. Come out and shot it. I think at one point he hit 7 of his first 8 threes. But I was as much impressed with his defense. I've known Brendan since he was old enough to walk. I mean, he used to live by us, and him and his dad would shovel his driveway so he could go out and shoot around when there's snow on the ground. And young man puts a lot of time and effort into the game of basketball. He really does. The thing I see in him that you don't see in a lot of people, frankly, you see in very few kids, court savvy, court awareness. He pretty well knows time and situation, but he's okay. And I know this kid I'm guarding has done this a lot. He just sees things so well. He seems to be in the right place at the right time. I don't know that I saw 3 of their games. I don't know that I saw him maybe force more than 1 shot. So that was impressive. And like I said, he can flat shoot it. He can play. Great passer. I think defensively he's improved tremendously from where I saw him a little bit last year when he would get in varsity games last year. That I think 1 or 2 I did on the radio. Sometimes he would defensively he wasn't as confident as he is now. He'd get out and guard you.
Well, and something that Coach Reeder talked about after the win over Highland was that you talked about all the 3-pointers he hit in the first game against Rantoul. Well, then against Highland, he scored similar number of points. He's just under 20 both nights, but did it in a completely different way against Highland. Didn't make a bunch of threes and didn't force anything. And Coach Reeder was sure to point that out and say, it would have been very easy for a kid to have a game like that in the first game of the season and just come out and say, okay, I need to take 12 more 3-pointers tonight. And he didn't do that because that's not where the game took him. And that shows maturity, shows that savvy that you're talking about to understand that you can't come out and play every game the same way and expect the same results. You have to adjust to the competition and what they're doing to you. And he was able to do that between those first two games.
And I know some people will look at me like, Wilson, do you know what the heck you're talking about?
Understandable.
Understandable. The more I sat back and looked, and again, I did not see their Mattoon game on Friday night, but may have played too well the first game against Rantoul, because as the tournament went on, I started seeing people passing up shots, good shots, not just, hey, this kid was wide open from 30 feet. He should, but some open looks and some things being passed up, almost like, all right, Brendan's going to score for us. And I'm not sure in the championship game he attempted a field goal in the fourth quarter. And that was primarily on Breeze Central. Defensively, they did a great job. They really did. But I think at times other kids were like, oh, I don't know if I can shoot this because we got to get Brendan an opportunity. They may have gotten subconsciously so reliant on him to just come save us at times. I think that led to them at times being tentative with some opportunities, which they'll get over that. Right. And I think you'll see some good things come of that. But it was just I started thinking about that after that championship game a little bit, and they were very dependent, I think, on him at times, certain possessions. And you have a person, a go-to person, but man, when that go-to person is shackled, other people have to put the ball in the hole at times to alleviate that pressure. And it's just one of those things. Hey, it's your fourth game of the year. They're going to get so much better. I think as they develop some cohesiveness, and I think they will develop an identity as a pain in the butt defensive team with a lot of backcourt pressure before it's said and done. I really think they can do some things to get some easy buckets and create some problems. But when they click, I think they've got a lot of upside.
Yeah.
But then talking to some folks after the championship game, that was our biggest fear, this type of game, when we don't get in a flow with Brendan getting his points, and he still ended up in double figures, but it's just the whole idea, as a team, subconsciously, the kids can't rely on him. And I don't mean that in a bad way. He's reliable. Trust me. He's the kind of kid you want on your team. You'd love to have kids like. Very few coaches get Brendan Neemerkey type players, and I don't mean that just so they can score, but their knowledge of the game. I mean, he can be special.
The silver lining in all that, though, is that in order to pass up good looks, they had to be there in the first place, and so that at least tells you that you're doing a lot of the things right as far as your ball movement, you're running your offense and all that, that they're there. So there's room for growth, as you've already mentioned. So
and their defense got them back in the game there in the middle of that fourth quarter. Breeze looked like they were one bucket away from kind of making this tough, and they extended their defense. Got the blender and the mixer. That's how you need to tell the Altos apart. One plays like a blender, one plays like a mixer. I mean, they're just going 100-mile-an-hour with their hands, and I love watching them play defense. And they started creating some turnovers, and awesome. Another kid we haven't mentioned, James Neemerkey. James is very athletic, and when he goes to the hole, I think, and I saw this in the tournament, kids are more worried about either getting blocked or getting a hard foul, and sometimes they're not putting up, the word quality is not there, but they're looking to get bailed out sometimes with calls. And I don't mean James is, but he goes the hole sometimes. I mean, he can rise up there. I'm just like, James, just dunk the settle. You know, it's, you know, with your athletic ability, and he's gotten better. He's gotten more confident. He's got to look to shoot the wide open jumper on the perimeter as well. And, but so much upside for this group. I mean, that's really what I would surmise.
So, you know, not to spend the entire time talking about the St. Anthony Thanksgiving tournament, but you know, there were, you know, as far as some other boys tournaments in the area, you know, Cumberland's always got a pretty competitive tournament down there, and we saw Newton get a championship. They beat Casey 46-42. Newton was the 2 seed there. Casey was the number 1 seed. So the Eagles haven't lost yet. So
shout out to Troy Bierman there. You know, they're new in our Christmas tournament. Troy he's been trying to, you know, get in as soon as he could. He knew he had some kids coming who could play. He wanted to toughen up his schedule. Looking forward to seeing them. You know, like I said, I track the whole tournament, so I know exactly how everyone in our tournament does up until the point we actually sit down as 3 or 4 of us on the committee and kind of seed it. Yeah, that's a great start. Charleston went 3-1.
Yeah.
They were playing up at Paris. I think Mount Zion was their only loss.
Yeah, Mount Zion undefeated, Lincoln undefeated. You know, the Apollo Conference. The Apollo Conference looks like it's going to have some. There's not going to be a whole lot of nights you can take off. It doesn't appear.
No, Mount Zion had a lot of young kids last year too. I think I did maybe a T-Town Mount Zion game on the radio last year. If that's possible. And yeah, I mean they had a group that should be juniors now that could play. So yeah, Capital Classic. Oh, who the heck?
It was Olney the one that
Olney went undefeated, beat Fairfield in the championship game. I knew Fairfield was in the title game. So, you know, that's got up to a good start. I saw, who was it? Lawrenceville went 2-2. Randy Bishop, the unretired Randy Bishop, is back coaching. They had a coach, I think, there for 1 year and decided he didn't want to do it. Glad to see Randy get back in it. I'll tell you what, you want to talk basketball with somebody, I can talk to you for days.
Yeah, that tournament, the Capital Classic, is always interesting to me because you get 4 games in, but you only do it over the span of 2 days. So it's sort of you really find out what kind of shape your guys are in right off the bat for starters. But then you know, it's just the format is interesting, and usually the teams are pretty good. I saw Salem had a triple overtime game there on Friday. They lost to Marshall.
Yeah, was that against Marshall? Yeah.
Yeah. And
I saw Marshall hit like 15 threes, 13 threes, something like that.
Yeah, 71-68 was the final score. Plenty of points, although again, you know, an extra 12 minutes of basketball mixed in there.
Yeah.
So that was interesting because in that pool, like I think everybody besides Fairfield went 1-2. Salem also lost to Fairfield, but they beat Lawrenceville. Lawrenceville beat Marshall,
right?
But Marshall had another loss in there. Well, they lost to Fairfield as well. So that seemed like it was probably a pretty interesting tournament to watch. You know, NTC boys teams there were some pretty good weeks there too. St. Elmo Brownstown, they're down in Mulberry Grove. That's smaller schools, but
won that tournament, didn't they?
They did. They went 4-0, and Cowden Herrick Beecher City went 3-1 at that same tournament. Windsor Stew Straws was up at Cerro Gordo, and they went 3-1, lost in the championship game of that tournament. Neoga had their own tournament for the first time, the Mary Sir tournament. I just wanted to shout that out because
I thought that was just a girls tournament. That was boys and girls.
Boys and girls, yeah.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
There was a boys side and a girls side. It was just a little round robin deal. So Neoga played. They lost to Sisney, but they beat Arthur Christian. They beat Central A&M by 20, which I don't know what Central A&M has got exactly. I don't think it's obviously not quite where they have been in recent years, but
yeah. And I just wonder football wise, because I know some schools almost have an unwritten rule. They give their football kids 1 week off, which wouldn't have given them a lot of time, because they went into the third round, I think, of the playoffs. And you mentioned on the Mary Cert thing, I know you were going to mention Whitey. That's tremendous. I mean, I knew Mary very, very well. We lived down the street from her, actually, here in town. And my kids, Mary thought it was good when my kids were real little. They started mowing yards, so they started mowing it. But the problem was when my kids all left and went to school and were involved in sports, the last 2-3 years, it was Mrs. Wilson I ended up mowing. And but just an outstanding person. There's not a more fitting thing than to name, a tournament like that after her. I know when Mary would run the scores table, she always had little bowls, little like Halloween chocolates and stuff in them for the coaches, and just little things like that. But nice, one of the nicest people you would have ever met in your life. Quality person.
Yeah, absolutely.
Knew the game of basketball, knew what she was doing. Right.
Yep. Those well, we've lost our connection with Mike.
That's good.
Okay. I lost you for a second there.
You froze up on me there.
Was it me? I don't know. We'll find out on the recording. But yeah, Mary, tremendous person, great lady. I knew her basically my whole life. So
she like your kindergarten teacher, Whitey?
She was not my kindergarten teacher.
Okay.
She was I was in Mrs. Hayden's class, but Miss Sir was right down the hall. So
you probably had kindergarten a couple of years ago, didn't
you? Well, I avoided that. I avoided that. Altamont didn't play in a Thanksgiving tournament. Altamont and South Central were the two NTC teams that they've only got one game in the books. Altamont got a win over Pana, I believe. I'm looking. Yeah, they beat Pana 61-54. South Central lost to Flora. Diederich was over at the Cumberland tournament. They got a win in the 7th place game over at Oblong, Palestine-Hudsonville. Palestine-Hudsonville and Oblong, they're co-oping in boys and girls basketball this year.
Which it's kind of funny because I coached in Crawford County at Hudsonville and taught there. And I mean, Palestine and Hudsonville are ideal. They're real close together. Oblong, you've got half hour to Hudsonville from Oblong.
Yeah,
depending on stoplights.
It sounded like Oblong was kind of out of options there. They kind of needed to do something. The numbers just apparently weren't there for them. And I'm sure as far as bodies, it's mutually exclusive or mutually beneficial for both programs. I'm especially on the girls' side. I'm guessing that coming by kids is tough sometimes. But
that's an interesting co-op because back in the day, not a lot of love lost between those three schools.
Well, I mean, I'm sure that you go 30 years back in the past and people would have said Windsor and Stu Straws. I'm not going to play those guys.
They played for a dang hatchet, for guys' sakes,
Yeah.
Some people, Illinois Northwestern played for a hat. Windsor and Stu Straws used to play for a hatchet.
Well, I think only one team showed up to play in that Illinois Northwestern.
Yeah, they
did. Let's look at some girls. Effingham's girls team is off to a great start. 5-0. They went to the Bob Curran's tournament over in Newton like they always do. They've been doing that as long as I've been paying attention.
Yep.
And they won all their games there. Plus they picked up a game with Diederich last week, which I didn't even know about until I talked to you before we went on. So they got a win over Diederich there, and then went 4-0 at Newton. It's a good start. The one thing that I will point out there, that's a tournament that most years Effingham probably should win 3 or 4 games in. They're the bigger school there. And it's a good way for them to get their feet wet. And it's a good way for those smaller schools to, play against a team like Effingham and see how they stack up against a little more depth usually and a little more varsity experience. But the one thing I will look at from that tournament is that Effingham and Altamont played, and Altamont's got a girls team that ought to be very competitive in the National Trail Conference this year, and Effingham got them 56-41. So to me, that was their big test in that meet, and they passed it pretty well. So the Hearts are in good shape.
I'll get to see the Altamont girls tonight. I'm helping Matt do the Dietrich Altamont girls.
Yeah, and Dietrich, by the way, they had a nice showing. Cowden-Herrick Beecher City has a nice little girls tournament. Again, it's kind of like that Mulberry Grove boys tournament. It's smaller schools, but very competitive. I think Dietrich was. I've got the. Let me look at my pairings that I have for that real quick, because I believe Dietrich was seeded, fifth in that, and those girls ended up losing in the championship game to Cowden-Herrick Beecher City, which is an undefeated girls team that I want to give a mention to also. Dietrich has had a numbers problem for a while now, and so that it makes it difficult, because I can't remember the last time they were able to play a JV schedule, and I still don't. It sounds like that's still kind of up in the air this year. But
now, aren't they growing though enrollment wise?
Well, yeah, I mean, Dietrich's a town that's been on the up and up. They've got a lot of good things going for them. It's been tough for the girls program to get the numbers, and if you can't play JV, then I mean it's two things. The JV schedule helps just for on the court development, but then also like in practices, if you've got 7 or 8 kids on the team, well, you can't even scrimmage. You can't practice game situations very well. So for Dietrich, I mean, their overall record is 3-4, but again, a loss to Effingham, which is a team that they're just not going to beat very often any year. But they went and had a nice showing at that tournament, and I hope that they can continue to be a fun team to watch. Again, Cowden-Herrick Beecher City 6-0 on the girls' side of things. When I first got started covering basketball for the Effingham Daily News about 15 years ago, Katie Heckert was the basketball coach over at Brownstown St. Elmo Brownstown, and now she's got a daughter that plays on that CHBC team, and by all accounts, she's one of the better players, but not the best. So they seem to have a nice group. It's a program that went to state not so long ago, but it's a couple of small school districts. There's going to be ups and downs as far as talent pool. Seems like they're in a good spot. And the St. Anthony girls, they're 4-2. They went to Robinson, and they won some, they lost some, but they seem like they're in a good place. Riley Guy for St. Anthony scored 30 points in their final game of that tournament. They beat They doubled up Robinson. They beat Robinson. I'm looking now, and I'm not seeing it, but they hung 70 on Robinson.
Wow.
And Riley scored 30. Lucy Fearday, who, if you were watching the softball team last year, her name is not unfamiliar to you, but she's an athletic kid that's just good at whatever she does. And she's been a pretty consistent double-figure scorer for them so far. So I think that, after, some years where things were sort of up and down and so for the Lady Bulldogs, I think that they've got a team that ought to be real competitive in the National Trail this year. Other NTC girls teams, I see that Altamont's also 4-2. Neoga won. They got a couple of wins in their tournament on their side of things. That Mary Sir tournament that we talked about, they won a couple of pretty easy games there, and then they had a team drop out at the last minute, so they actually lost a game there because they weren't going to play. Their own JV had to fill in the blanks there for Chrisman.
Was that a COVID issue? I wonder. Like
no,
having troubles.
No, the word that I got was that they had a couple of kids get hurt. They had another kid out of town on vacation, and they just couldn't absorb that. Okay. It looks, based on a couple scores I've seen, it looks like it's going to be a pretty tough year for them. So the numbers were already not good, and you get 3 kids gone, and that's what happened there. But yeah, it seems like in the on the girls' side of the NTC, it seems really like, I mean, there's CHBC, St. Anthony, Altamont, Neoga. I think you're going to have some really good competition for the top spot, and I think that like the likes of Diederich and Brownstown, St. Elmo, Brownstown, they're going to make things interesting. So that'll be a fun one to watch. Going back to the Apollo for a minute, Effingham obviously 5-0, but the Mahomet Seymour girls are 4-0. Lincoln and Mattoon were sort of the teams that were talked about as favorites, and they're off to good starts. Lincoln's 5-1, Mattoon is 4-1. So I think there's going to be some tough competition at the top of that league too. It does look like Mount Zion and Charleston are down. Charleston particularly. Charleston was so good last year, but they lost a lot. Jeff Miller retired from coaching, and so far
it's tough to replace Shea Littleford.
Yeah, I mean, and she was good, obviously, but they had a lot of good pieces around her, and they seem to be in a bit of a rebuilding year. So I think, though, you look at that Apollo schedule, and for Effingham's girls, it's there's going to be plenty of challenging games on the horizon. The T-Town girls got off to a good start as well. They've spent the last couple of I guess weekends, you would say, playing at the Salem Thanksgiving tournament, and they got 3 wins out of 4 games there. Plus they beat Newton last.
That's a round robin down there, and when you were looking at the scores, it was it was just kind of odd in some of the games, because I think like Carterville, who beat them, who's got a lot of talented kids, ended up getting beat. I think Carterville's loss maybe was to Highland, and somebody beat Highland bad. I mean, it was
T-Town beat Highland by 38 points. T-Town beat him.
And then I saw where Highland beat Carterville, and I did bump into Lori, and she goes, Carterville just. I said, Carterville got beat by Highland? And she goes, yeah, they didn't shoot it very. She goes, we played really, really well against Highland. Just one of those games where everything was working and clicking. And then I saw Lori had 3 girls make all tournament team. Mm-hmm. Conkle, Shoemaker, and Kneebergy, I believe, were the 3. So that
sounds right. Yes.
Yeah. So, I think they're 4-1, 5-1 right now.
4-1. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, they've got I think they've got a lot of upside to them this year, just based on, what I saw when they had their scrimmage that night when they dedicated the floor. So yeah, I think they should be in for a fun season.
And one more shout out I wanted to give on the girls' side of things. Cumberland is 5-1. And Cumberland, they haven't gotten off to that good of a start in close to 10 years. They went to that same tournament at Cowden Herrick Beecher City and finished 3rd. Their only loss was to CHBC, and that was a 7-point game, so it was real competitive. They've got a couple of winnable games this week. They play Casey, which the Casey Westfield's girls seem to be pretty down this year, and then they've got that OPH Oblong Palestine Hudsonville co-op on Thursday. They have a very real possibility to be 7-1 going into a Saturday game against Neoga, and I find that one interesting on a personal level because Sammy James coaches at Cumberland, and her dad Seth, one-time varsity coach for Neoga and now the JV coach for Kim Romack. it's always fun when they go up against each other. They both coach at the junior high level as well, so we always try to make it out to those. But that could be a really fun game on Saturday afternoon between Yoga and Cumberland. So I'm looking forward to that one. But I wanted to give Sammy a shout out because she's been there for a few years now, and this is far and away the best they've been able to start. And you put in the time, you take your lumps, and you really gotta savor these years when you start winning some ball games.
Yeah, well, and a lot of times it's girls who were playing as freshmen and have taken some lumps, and now they're older and more confident, and they're stronger. And it's a good thing to see.
The challenge you run into, and this isn't specific to that program, this is just a high school thing, but when you have young teams that go into a season and win like 3 games, it's tough to get them to stick around. It's tough to get 4 years out of them.
Hey, I went 1-20, 1-22 one year. That's
yeah,
I know all about those years.
It's really difficult to turn the culture around once things get to a certain point, because kids just start saying, well, I'm not going to play basketball. I mean, why would I want to play basketball? They don't win. But you gotta figure out a way to get a core group locked in, and they do. That Cumberland team's got some seniors on it that have stuck with it through the low points, and they've been with her since the beginning. So that's just I hope the other young coaches who maybe have struggled at smaller schools and in programs that don't have a great tradition see something like that and realize that it's possible to turn around. You're not fighting an impossible battle, just a bit of an uphill one.
And one thing you got to remember also when you have those years, mine, I knew, we were going to struggle. We lost 3 of our first 4 games by a total of 5 points. So, and it was all within the OPH, we were in a Thanksgiving tournament together. Then that's who we opened with. But it was a case where you got to make things kind of fun. I mean, you got to read the room. They say, read the room, read the room. Well, if all you're going to do is come in and run people into the ground in practice because you lost again, your kids are going to quit. We ran the Loyola Marymount offense back when they were scoring 100 and some points a game, but it was push the ball and the first good look, take it. And somebody said something, well, why don't you hold the ball? I said, it's a case that year. If we make 4 passes, the chance of us turning it over are better than 50-50. So no, if I got a kid open, he's going to take it. And the kids enjoyed playing. Yeah, we got beat. We were competitive, and we shocked a couple teams because we might get red hot one night, hang around a lot longer than the state ranked Martinsville team. We hung around a lot longer than Randy Bishop wanted us hanging around. He was none too happy with his squad. But we're 1-16, and it's still single digit game, early in the 4th quarter, and shouldn't have been, but we were throwing everything in. So you make it fun for the kids. And then if it's young kids involved, which many times it is, they come back, and then more kids come back, and then they work on their game a little bit, and then you get a program going, and it's kind of the process.
So, we've been going for a while. So we got 2 things left to cover. We need to do our Attiboy, and I would at least like to kind of, give a little bit of a preview of the week ahead of us.
Okay. You do the preview.
Like you said, you're doing that Altamont Dietrich girls game tonight. Let me look at. I'm kind of looking at the radio station schedule. I mean, because you and I are both kind of an arm of the Premier Broadcasting team. So it's like,
is Millie Lang our producer, sort of, kind of?
Well, sort of. The St. Anthony girls, they've got Ocob. They're at Ocob Valley tonight, and They looks like they're home with Windsor Stewarts and Strasburg Thursday. So I think that's based on what Windsor Stew did at the CHBC tournament. I would think that that's a game that St. Anthony's got a pretty good chance to win, and I really think that Coach Rios could have his team at 6-2 by the end of the week if they play well. So that would be nice for them to continue that momentum, get another conference game. They had beaten Diederich already, so they could move to 2-0 in the conference with that. The Effingham girls, I'm looking now. They don't play Thursday. They switched. Actually, see, I said preview, and I really wasn't. I wasn't well prepared to even get into it, as it turns out.
Adjust that on the payroll.
The main thing I wanted to talk about, honestly, with the preview was that the Effingham boys were supposed to play Thursday against Taylorville. Now, first of all, that is correct. It was supposed to be a Thursday night game. Home game was Taylorville, but Taylorville has another
outbreak of COVID.
Another COVID issue, which seems like it's been rougher for Taylorville schools than a lot of districts in the area over the past couple of years.
And you mentioned Thursday. I think you're going to see more boys games on traditional non-boy nights. I think you will see some boys games on Mondays and some boys games on Thursdays, simply, and maybe more Saturday games, simply because of the official situation.
Yeah. Well, and I think also, I don't know exactly. The Apollo Conference is the one that's kind of doing it this year. And I do, my understanding is that I think that it's also just to get some of the girls to games on a Friday night, just to give them a chance to play on Fridays. I mean, I think anyone who's listening to this understands already, but I'll say it anyway, just to make sure we're clear. But Monday and Thursday have been the traditional girls' nights, and Tuesday and Friday have been the traditional boys' nights. Now, I do think that it'd be nice to get the girls some Friday night games, because that's when people can come out. It's, typically speaking, there's not work the next day. Kids don't have school the next day, so you see a better turnout. There's a couple of reasons why that might be on a Friday night outside of just the other obligations. I mean, some people might tell you, well, the reason more people come out to the Friday night boys game is because it is a boys game and people just like boys basketball better. But I've seen enough in this area to know that there's plenty of good girls games that are worth going to. So I don't buy that necessarily, but I would understand somebody making that argument. But at any rate, Effingham was supposed to play a home game against Taylorville Thursday night. That's not happening. Taylorville couldn't play its last game at the tournament that it was at. It might have been. I'm looking now where they were at. Taylorville was at the Civic Memorial tournament. They were supposed to play Troy Triad on Saturday, and they got that one called off. So again, Taylorville, they've had a rougher go of it than a lot of other districts, it seems like. I mean, they had a student that they lost a while back because of COVID complications, and their football team in the spring, when they played that abbreviated spring
short season, lost what, 2 games?
Yeah, they only ended up playing 3 or 4 games. So that's unfortunate. We'll have to see how that plays out, if they'll try to. I mean, I assume they'll try to make it up at a later date. You got to get those conference games in, but Effingham was supposed to play that conference game. So I'm looking at what else, if anything, they were supposed to do this week. That was supposed to be their game this week. So that's a tough deal for them. The Effingham girls, they do play a Tuesday night game at Taylorville, though. So we'll see. The Taylorville's supposed to be a pretty good team, so that's a nice early test for Jeff Schaefer's team.
And it's always tough on the road. That's just such a hard drive to go up there and play.
The St. Anthony boys have got North Clay at home on Tuesday night.
Should be a good ball game. I know, again, Cody his lineup was, a constant work in progress. So we'll see.
St. Anthony boys also, I feel like I saw, they play Sullivan Friday night. So I don't know much about Sullivan, so I can't speak much to that other than there's years where that could be a pretty good test. So that could be interesting. You see some other NTC games around the area Friday night that could be interesting. Yoga and St. Elmo Brownstown, Diedrich and Windsor Stew Straws. Those could be some interesting games. But we're getting into a rhythm now. You get that Thanksgiving week out of the way, and then it starts to be more of a couple games a week schedule up until Christmas, which isn't that far away, but easier to keep tabs on. I've been trying to keep tabs on all the area teams, and it's a lot to track down those scores.
When you mention Christmas, because our committee for the Christmas tournament, it's things go slow and then they go fast and then they go slow. Well, now they're starting to go fast again. So we're trying to tie up a lot of loose ends, and it's mostly the things that, getting everything set up for the program, and now, most importantly, trying to get all the food lined up for the hospitality room, and, getting all that coordinated. So, we're getting there. So are we ready for our new edition?
We're ready. Why don't you tell us?
Well, we have an award now. We have an Attiboy that we'll give out once a week. And again, it's not gender specific. This can be male or female. So that is what it is. Joe's Pizza, Joey Trupiano. I'll say Joey and Manny. Manny knows nothing about it. He was not at the store when I was talking. So Joey, talked to Joey, and Greg Addis from Pizza Man, two people who, two very good businesses in town that are very sport oriented. Both of them are, players, and they are very, very generous with helping things out like that. So I reached out to both of them. So they are our co-sponsors. So Joe's Pizza and Pizza Man are the co-sponsors. And what we'll be doing is 1 week we'll be giving out a $10 gift certificate. I was originally going to say, hey, let's do a lunch special. And then Joey said, hey, high school kids maybe get one chance to come in and eat lunch a quarter when they don't have school. So we're giving out a gift card. Mm-hmm. And we'll alternate. So I think Addis comes before Trupiano. I think we'll do Pizza Man first. So we'll give out it'll be on behalf of Pizza Man this week. And our Attiboy, and when I say that, that's when we got to get ready for our new soundbite. So our Attiboy. All right, we got to do it again. It was slow.
It was okay. We're a work in progress here.
Is it safe to say this hasn't been rehearsed?
Yeah, no, we didn't talk about how we were going to do this. So
you're right.
I'm just sitting here ready to play it. I didn't know if you're going to be like, to so-and-so.
Nope. There you go. All right. And that's, for those of you that don't know, that soundbite comes from the movie The Ghost and Mr. Chicken from the great Don Knotts. So Attiboy Luther is where the Attiboy would come from. And our Attiboy of the week this week goes to Mr. Brendan Kneeberkey. And ironically, I decided his award on a defensive play. He'd hit a couple back-to-back threes and was really getting people going, and then just busted his tail to get back in the back, pick up the dribbler, get up in this kid and force a turnover. And, a kid's hit back-to-back threes. He's not saluting the crowd, doing the waves. He's getting back, making something happen on the defensive end. And at that point, I said, there's our initial winner. He'll be famous for being the first Attiboy Luther. So I will make sure I get that gift card for Mr. Addis tomorrow and get that over to Brendan. I'm sure he'll probably tear up, but I'll get that to him.
I was going to say, are you going to say now, I'm going to need a subscription on YouTube from you before I hand this card over? I mean,
I might.
We might as well engage in some light extortion while we're at it.
Strings attached. Well, the funny thing is, and I don't know why, but Greg Addis and Joey Trupiano both said, well, we will be monitoring you coming in and spending these gift certificates yourself. So they already are concerned of that. But no, it's, I appreciate, thank you to those two guys. Like I said, very generous. We work with them a lot at the Christmas tournament, and they are givers, very much so. And so it's a nice fit, and it's kind of ironic. Brendan's family owned Pizza Man, and then they sold it to the Addises. So Brendan, he's probably he was raised on Pizza Man as a youngster. So
well, hopefully he'll enjoy that.
Oh, he will.
So Brendan, one more time, this one goes out to you.
Attiboy, Luther.
There you go. That's the level of volume we got to hear.
I cranked it all the way up.
That's good. I will. Various people, when they I know when they watch this, because I'll be getting scathing text for having that soundbite in there. But that's, we call the shots.
I was not familiar with it, if you'll believe that. But I did go and find it. Hopefully that works. But Mike, we've been going. We've been talking and talking and talking. This might be our longest show yet. We didn't even have a guest.
No.
We're not going to stop having guests just because we're talking basketball, but we do think that given the demographics of our area and how much people like their basketball, hopefully these conversations will be interesting to people, and it's what they want. So I don't know exactly what's on tap for next week, but we're going to keep talking. At least every week, there's going to be some basketball discussion from around the area. There won't.
We hope to be. Our plan is to be back with a guest. That is the plan. We'll see how that works. See, there's my phone, Whitey, as you can see that. My background is the Ghost of Mr. Chicken. So. Not that I'm obsessed with that movie.
I guess
Breaking news I saw from the Twitterverse during our show. And I was glad to see it. Max Scherzer is now a New York Met.
Well, the talk last night was that was going to happen, so that doesn't surprise me.
Right.
The word was that it was going to be record-breaking annual value. It's fairly short term, but
3 year, 130. So that's what, 43.
Yep, that's pretty.
Pretty good pay if you can get that. But the best part is he's no longer a Dodger.
He's no longer a Dodger, but
and the Mets will find a way to screw it all up.
Well, that's kind of the way I look at it, is that he'll come down with some sort of an injury, and they'll tell him to pitch through it for a couple months, and then his whole arm will fall off by August. That's kind of how the Mets do things. So
the Cardinals signed Steven Matz. Great sign.
Well, they signed Steven Matz, and then Steve Cohen, the owner of the Mets, got on his Twitter account and whined about loyalty and not being able to trust agents. And I honestly just think that most people involved with pro sports would be better off if they just didn't do social media at all. They only seem to make a mess of it. But that's okay. In that case, the Mets can continue to step on as many rakes as they want to. I do think the Mets have done some good things this week. Apparently today is going to be a pretty crazy day as far as free agent signings. Everyone's trying to players are trying to get their deals done before this lockout that's probably going to end up happening.
Yes.
And who knows?
And I'm afraid it's going to be a lengthy one.
Well, yeah. I could talk to you for another hour about that kind of stuff. But I'm not, people don't want to hear me probably railing against the commissioner and ownership of these teams for an hour. So we won't do that. But yeah, that was big talk last night that was going to happen. I see that has happened. So yeah, we'll be back next week. We'll see about a guest. We'll let you know what the plans are as the week goes on. But as always, appreciate you taking the time to listen to this. If you want to have a pretty good idea about what's going on with basketball in the area, well, I think that probably sticking with us throughout the season would be a good idea. And while you're at it, you might as well find us on YouTube, find us on Facebook, give us a subscribe on YouTube. If you're hearing this, you're on our YouTube, you're seeing us already. So you might as well just click subscribe. It takes 2 seconds and you'll never miss anything. So
and I think you have to set up a Gmail account. So
everybody's got
that's easy. Yeah, everybody's still they're not making you pay for anything. So
yeah, it doesn't cost anything. Just do it. Get subscribed, never miss a minute. But yeah, it's lunchtime. I got work to do. So we're going to sign off. So congratulations to all the teams across the area for good first week. We're looking forward to following you. And for everyone watching and listening, we'll talk to you next week. Take it easy, Mike.
Hey, Whitey.